But Gary Schnitkey is our next speaker. Did I get that right? Excellent. And Gary is from the, with farm business or farm management extension specialist at the University of Illinois. He's an expert in economics, farm management, and risk management in corn belt agriculture. And Gary will be talking about managing fertilizer inputs for optimal profits and risk. Welcome, Gary.
All right. Thank you very much. My name has been mispronounced many different ways over the years, but that was right. You got it right. So I appreciate your attention today. I think I have also the distinction of being different from your other speakers. One, I'm from Illinois, so you have to already not trust me. And the other one is that I'm an ag economist, so which pushes me further down the list of trustability, I suppose. Anyway, what I'm going to do today is talk about some background on where we are at fertilizer costs now. And obviously, this has been, quote unquote, an interesting year to look at fertilizer costs. We have much higher costs this year than last year, and I'm going to put that first in perspective of where we're at. And then I'm going to talk about managing, particularly nitrogen in 2022. And as you can imagine, there are no good alternatives at this point in time. Our recommendations are going to be to, or my recommendations would be to delay as much as possible the application as far along into the season as you possibly can, reduce rates, but I would not say to switch corn and soybeans. When we look at rotational returns for corn relative to soybeans, even given these high fertilizer costs, we still see corn as just as profitable as soybeans. Having said that, things switch around every now and then. In Illinois, a number of the farmers I deal with are thinking about going to more soybeans because of the lower cost, but then you get out of rotations and may have some other issues associated with that. Finally, I'm going to report a little bit about a study called PCM. And here I'm going to focus on what we've seen from about 300 farmers in East Central Illinois and what they do nitrogen-wise and what's been more profitable for nitrogen in that area of the world. So that's my outline. So we're going to start here first with background. And my background starts off with non-land cost for corn. You're seeing it up there for this is Central Illinois. I am from Central Illinois, so I use that series. It would not be all that much different from Minnesota. You have the Center for Financial Management at the University of Minnesota, and I could have gotten those statistics from there as well. The Center for Financial Management here is very good, and you can tell them that, but make sure they don't get too big of heads when they hear that. But they're a very good group, and Minnesota has a data set similar to what I'm showing here, and it would essentially show the same things. Here for 2022, and that's what the last bar is, we're projecting much higher costs, and I just got the non-land costs in there right now, which is everything but land. So if you have a cash rent, you would have to be adding the cash rent onto it. If your own land, you would add the own lands. In any case, that number for next year is $755 per acre, which is very, very high, and over $100 more higher than 2021, which was one of our highest years as well. So we're looking into 2022 as being a very high cost year, and fertilizer is actually leading well, let me rephrase that. Every cost is going up. Just every cost you can think of. The only one that may not be going up is interest, and interest cost on some of our Illinois farms may be down because the loan balances may be less, but That remains to be seen. Every other cost is going up. And we're coming up with an estimate right here of fertilizer costs, and this would be for corn of $230 per acre. And I'll show you here how we come up with that number here in a minute. I would also say that that's going to vary a lot from farmer to farmer to farmer. And in our area of the world, we do a lot of fall applications of nitrogen. And those farmers that went out and made the right choice, I suppose, and purchased what they thought at that time was $700 to $800 anhydrous ammonia for fall delivery, and they thought that was high. And as it turned out, they made a good decision. Whether that was luck or not, we'll leave that up to the audience. They're happy about it, and that would make that $230 per acre much less, more in the realm of $180 to $190 per acre. Still not low, but not up at the levels that we're looking there at $230 per acre. So that's, and fertilizer is always, it depends how you break out the cost, but fertilizer is almost always the largest cost for corn and soybeans. And again, that depends on how you break out the cost, but it usually is bigger than seed, pesticides, and then how you lump machinery together could get machinery up there up to higher levels. So that's what's happening for 2022 in that bar for the last bar there is our projections for 2022. There is no doubt that those costs in 2022 are going to be much higher. The question is, will they come down in 2023? And I would say fertilizer may, but the other costs aren't likely to. By the way, and you'll see, may come down in 2023. Don't expect it to come down this year, but it may come down in 2023. We'll see. So this is what's happened to. These are indexes, and I'm going to go from indices for the US. They're going to show the same thing. We had that big old bump here at the end of the series. That happened this fall. And we saw, and these are indices. So, and I'll come down to the prices next slide, but they all went up considerably this fall. Actually, they were coming up from last year, but depending on your point of view, they really took off in the fall. So that's what's happened. And if you're looking at it from aggregate base, these are our highest costs since 2008, which was the financial crisis. So that financial crisis caused or contributed to the high prices then, and now we got stuff going on. So that's what those look like. Now I'm going to zero in, and these are per ton cost, per ton prices in Illinois. There's not, to my knowledge, this USDA puts out this series, so it goes back to 2008 up to the present. Iowa has it. Minnesota does not. You might bang on your AMS office and say, hey, we'd like it too. But if you look at Iowa and Illinois prices, they obviously follow each other closely. Right now, Iowa prices, for whatever reason, on anhydrous are about $10 higher than Illinois. And I don't know if that's normal, but that's what they're running at right now. Anhydrous ammonia hit $14.97. This would be for the end of January. That was the price of anhydrous ammonia, $14.97. And that was up from last, all right, let's go back to October, not of 2021, but 2020. Anhydrous ammonia prices then were running in $440 range. Early fall, late summer, they were in the $700 to $800 per ton range. And then they went up quickly, very fast in the fall. And we've reached $14.97 at the end of January. So this is, they report these prices at the end of January, or excuse me, every 2 weeks. So there's January early price, January late price. And here's the good news of this all. If you're looking at this slide, it appears that they aren't going up anymore. Last three prices that we look at, December, January, have all been in sort of in that high, close to $1,500 a ton range. Okay, and we've seen all the other costs go up as well. We've seen DAP go up from to $859 per acre, and potash to $811 per acre. The one obvious, well, they all get your attention, but the anhydrous ammonia is much higher than our last time we had our high cost, which was in this 2010 period. And then over here, we had $1,200 prices for both DAP and potash. Again, that was the financial crisis and everything that was going on there. So we're elevated there. Just to give you a feel for what this means for our fertilizer cost, again, this is Illinois. I took requirements pounds per acre. Nitrogen are MRTN rates, so they would be University of Illinois recommended rates. And then we have DAP and potash, and they would be at replacement rates. And this is about 220 bushel corn yield. But so that'll give you a feel there. The anhydrous ammonia rate, you're going to see a theme here, is lower at a $1,400 price, that recommendation, than at a $500 price. So those are a recommendation. Last year, October 2022, we were looking at $94 per acre in fertilizer cost for corn, 46 for soybeans. This year, we're at that 232 level, and 106 for soybeans, $138 up for corn, and $60 for soybeans. So that's where we're at. Again, that is plugging in a $1,400 anhydrous ammonia price. If we got that applied earlier in this, or purchased earlier, those costs could be much lower than that. I would also say that if you're using, or farmers are using UAN or 28% or 32%, those costs will be above what we're showing here, because UAN 28% and 32% typically are a higher, almost always are a higher cost ingredient for corn. I don't know if, and that may play a role this year. So that's where we're at. So let's talk about strategies. And the first question that I always get is, are the prices going to come down this spring? I have no crystal ball. So I have no crystal ball, but I will give you your answer, my answer to that. I have no crystal ball. I will give you my answer to that, and you can take it to the bank, which won't get you very far. So there you go. All right. So this is what anhydrous ammonia price looks like from that 2008 to 2022 period. So you'll see that anhydrous ammonia, and again, this is the same thing I showed before. So we have anhydrous ammonia doing what it does, and I'm going to lay out over it two prices. So one price is natural gas, and natural gas is the major cost ingredient going into anhydrous ammonia. And since 28% urea, 32% are byproducts of anhydrous ammonia or further process, it's an ingredient in all of those. So what natural gas does is important. And you can see here that that natural gas has gone up. You would say that it's natural gas. We were going through a period where fracking, et cetera, has had reduced natural gas prices. Now we're looking at higher natural gas prices, and you can list a whole policy reasons for those. I would also tell you that you probably need to think about what's going on in Europe. And remember that Western Europe relies on Russia for a lot of its natural gas. And there's sort of a kerfuffle going on there. So there you go. So that's not, well, that does have an impact on our price here. So we've seen those natural gas prices go up, and there is a correlation there between natural gas and anhydrous ammonia price. And here's the other one, corn price. And you'll see a positive correlation between corn price and natural gas price. And I can build a number of arguments for you for why that's the case. One would be that as corn price goes up, farmers may use more fertilizer, and there may be more acres of corn around the world to meet demand. So therefore, the demand for ammonia goes up. You could also make the greed argument, and I don't care which one you make. It's just sort of a fact of life that those follow one another. All right, so what we did here, coming down, we developed a little price model of anhydrous ammonia that depends on 3 variables: lagged ammonia price, and this is the Illinois price, corn price, and natural gas price, and that's a Henry Hub price. And you'll also note, I'll also note that the natural gas futures are doing some things now. But this result explains anhydrous ammonia prices well up till November of this year. Okay. Corn price has a large role in anhydrous ammonia price, and it actually has a larger role than natural gas. So if you want to see natural gas or anhydrous ammonia prices come down, one of the things that could cause it is lower corn prices. Not sure you want to see that either. And in November 2021, the actual price was $400 above what our model predicted. So here, this will show you what the actual prices were, our predicted prices were, and then you'll notice that that follows each other reasonably well until the end. And I'm just going to blow up the end, and there you see the end. So November, if our model would predict an anhydrous ammonia price, given where corn and natural gas prices of $1,000 to $1,200 per acre, somewhere in that range, and we're at $1,400 to $1,500 an acre now. And you can list a whole host of reasons why that's above there now. One of those, and it's one of those is Hurricane Ida shuttered natural gas plants. So, and earlier this fall, that would have an impact on that. And there is just, any supply, anything you want to buy has a supply chain issue now. So that is where we're at. And now, so our model would say that what you should be hoping for is a anhydrous ammonia price of $1,000 to $1,200. We're at $1,500 now, and so that may or may not happen. And I would bet that it does not come down. So, because of all the things that are going on in the world. Here is, and again, I would sort of think that you're going to see these anhydrous ammonia prices where they're at for a while. Maybe after this application season, we'll see those come down. I would also note that there's large incentives at those prices to provide nitrogen fertilizers out there. So I would expect supplies to be there. Maybe, but there will be an incentive to supply those. I would also, and again, there are very high production costs in other countries, primarily Europe, and there are some countervailing duties and pays. So what does this all mean for nitrogen decisions? I personally believe that fertilizer prices, corn prices, and soybean prices are going to be very intertwined till planting happens. If you think about it, we need just as many corn acres as soybean acres. So the demand and the prices have to be there to cause corn acres to be planted. And if I look at our budgets right now, our corn comes out about as profitable as soybeans. And it varies by day, depending on what prices are, but it's very difficult to think that switching to either soybeans or corn is going to increase profits a lot. I would expect that relationship to go away after planting, because at that point in time, the only thing that matters is weather and other supply and demand conditions, because the crop is in the ground. So we no longer have to bid that crop into place, and nitrogen is out there. Or a lot of it's out there. So yeah, at that point in time, that relationship can go away. And that tells me that right now, if you're going to plant more soybeans, I would price those additional soybeans. Because right now, if you're looking at soybean and corn prices, they should result in profitable production given you get trend yields. So if you're going to do it because of prices, price it. I would also say if you're going to be buying expensive nitrogen now, price them as the corn so that you have these higher corn prices to cover those costs. So either way, sort of link the decisions you're going to make more and more. And I would even say that you should probably be considering pricing more of the crop than you typically do pre-harvest. And our surveys would say that in Illinois, and I don't know if this is Minnesota, but by March, about 20%, 20 to 30% of the expected production is priced. I would move that up to a 10% higher. Again, that's because we're looking at prices that are profitable now, even with these high costs. So making those decisions may make sense. So what then are strategies? So strategies, so I'm going to go through as far as applying nitrogen, and obviously if you got the nitrogen on in the fall, you're pretty much done. But so let's say you have some nitrogen to apply yet. One of the strategies that I would suggest is applying a split application and applying 75% of the MRTN, or what you typically apply before planting, and the remaining after plant. And this is just the classic risk management sort of thing. We're going to price it twice and see what happens. So we can make another decision in May and June, and if prices have come down or whatever the economics look at that situation, we can adjust those rates at that point in time. Again, that is a classic risk management strategy. The issue with that is that if you haven't, you're going to apply it one more time, and you're going to have one more application cost associated with the nitrogen application if you're doing it as another application. The second strategy is to apply more of the nitrogen as anhydrous ammonia. And I'm just showing at a $1,300 price and a $563 price for 28% what the actual end price is. It's a pretty typical relationship, 82 cents for anhydrous ammonia, $1 for 28%. That's, if anything, the prices make that difference wider. And, you know, if you're looking for cost areas, that may be one area. Obviously, you got the problem if everybody switches, the supplies aren't going to be there as well. So make sure that you have have those supplies available. So I'm not saying any of these strategies are the golden panacea here. The third one, so this is, I went out and got Minnesota and went into the MRTN. This is for a $5 corn price and a varied anhydrous ammonia from $500 to $1,000 to $1,500. So this is just varying the anhydrous ammonia price. This is the anhydrous pounds recommended per acre. This is pounds per acre, and you should talk to Fabian about this rather than an ag economist from Illinois. But the point here is that these models are going to recommend lower nitrogen application rates at these higher prices, and you will likely be giving a little bit of yield up, but you're paying $1,500 or $600 for the nitrogen as well. So that's why those models say that. I would also note that in Illinois, 70% of our farmers apply above the MRTN. So it might be time to think about, is it time to reduce rates back to those MRTN levels? So, and this is what that looks like in Illinois. So again, northern, central, and southern Illinois. And if you want to, this is MRTNs, and if you want to anger southern Illinois farmers, show them this graph, because for whatever reason, MRTNs are higher for southern Illinois and yields are lower. And it has to do with the soils, right? They're less organic matter. So there you go. But in any case, just showing what anhydrous ammonia does to those rates. And again, we're looking at higher rates this year, or higher prices this year. So those are the strategies that we would suggest. Again, none of those are going to or obviously that you can't mitigate a high price, but these are some of the things that you may think about as far as mitigating risk. And again, I'm not sure I would be changing rotations all that much, particularly if you're in a 50-50 corn soybean rotation, and that's been working well or whatever. I don't see the economics suggesting switching from one crop to the other. Again, you should probably be looking at your own results, your own budgets to come up with those decisions. All right, I'm going to turn to farmer behavior, and I'm going to show you some of our nitrogen results. And this comes from a program called Precision Conservation Management, PCM. And this program was put in place by Illinois corn growers, and Illinois soybean has joined forces with it. But the large part of the reason why this program exists is because nutrient management and resulting nutrient practices are a big deal in Illinois. We are under a nutrient management plan that would like us to see nitrogen going down, and we're in the process of looking at the economics of some of those practices. So our goal here is to inform that debate about what are some of the economics of those practices. What we do here, and PCM is expanding outside this area, but this is the area that I'm going to show results for today. We have now currently in this area, we have over 300 farmers enrolled in this area, and there's over 100,000 acres that provide data to PCM in this area. That's 16 Illinois counties, and this area is going to be growing in 2021 to include Nebraska. There's also some Kentucky data that we're moving into northwest Illinois and southern Illinois as well. This east central area is flattened black. So if you're driving through Central Illinois, this is very productive farmland, flat and black, not much topography, or relatively not much. What we do is we collect field information from each farm. And what we do is we identify some fields that they're going to track over time. We track their crops, we track their systems, and we track all of their inputs that they put on that. So we know, for example, one field, we would know that they applied nitrogen in the fall and the anhydrous ammonia rate that they applied in the fall. And so we track every field pass that these farmers make across those fields, and also the final yield as well. So we then put economics to them. We put those economics to them, not with their own prices, but standard prices that we use. So for example, in 2021, we would say that anhydrous ammonia cost $500 per ton, and we would apply that to all farms in here. So we're not getting differences in buying and selling behavior on these farms. We're getting differences in rates and practices. What I'm going to do here is show you some of our comparisons. Our first is our nitrogen timing comparison. And then I'm going to do a nitrogen rate comparison as well. So here's our timing comparisons. And we divided these farms up into these types. Fall application was where you had at least 40% of your nitrogen applied in the fall. Mostly pre-plant, the majority of nitrogen is applied in spring before planting or at planting. Side dress, majority after planting, 50-50, three-way split. So what we're going to do here is show you some of our economic results for those standards. And those are the ways in which these farmers are applying nitrogen in this area. So that's what we divided those in. And the nitrogen values that I'm going to show here include nitrogen in DAP and MAP. So that nitrogen is going into the final as well. The breakdown of the fields, 30% are fall, 28%, 30-33. Roughly a third are fall, mostly pre-plant, mostly side dress, and then we got some more aggressive splitting going up there is 15%. So one of the major things that I learned with this study is no farmer does it the same. With nitrogen, with planting, you look at these farms, and there's, even though we're producing corn in central Illinois and soybeans, the process, every farmer does it different, which is sort of interesting in and of itself. Here's what those look like. So this is our percent of fields. This is our measure of return, and this would be a measure of return to the farmer and landowner. So we got to subtract out land cost here. And I would note that some of these, remember that we're including years back here in 2015, 16, 17, 18 that weren't as good as we're currently done. One of the things you'll note here, our highest return was 287 for mostly pre-plant and mostly side dress. So those two had the highest return. Fall did not, 50-50 did not, and three-way split did not. What happened to these two is that the more nitrogen application field passes you make, we put a cost in there. And so as you put those nitrogen application passes in there, the return goes down. I would note, so the yields aren't actually all that much different between these systems. Here's the N rate, And our fall applied farmers applied the most. And while fall application, typically you're putting it on as anhydrous ammonia, which typically has the lower cost. Most of the farmers in this study, the vast majority, put a nitrogen inhibitor on, which is $13 to $15 per acre. So those costs are in there, and once you begin to include that $13 to $15 inhibitor costs, you see that sort of counters the higher nitrogen or lower nitrogen costs. So there's what we see, and we see here mostly pre-plant, mostly side dress had the higher returns in this look at things. I'm going to just show you the average nitrogen cost across these systems, and you'll see here that they were fall came in there about the same as the other two. This is the inhibitor in there primarily. And this one, our three-way split, why it's not profitable is because people put on a lot of nitrogen. So rather than spoon feed it, our individuals that did three-way split tended to have very high nitrogen rates. High nitrogen rates plus, the cost associated with that is what led to those lower returns. So what we found here is that from a return standpoint, our mostly pre-plant, mostly side dress did better than our fall application. All right. The other thing that we did is look at rate. And I'm going to show you our rate results here. And this is the MRTN for 2021 for Illinois. And so those rates are MRTNs in 2021. They would be lower than that in 2022 because of higher prices. But that'll give you a feel for what our recommended rates would be. And again, those come from MRTN, this tool, and Minnesota is part of that tool as well. So these are the rates. And here, this is the nitrogen applied, pounds per acre, and then yield here. And this is, and we threw all the years together, 2015 to 2020. This is the MRTN range. All right. And so over 70% of our farms are applying above the MRTN. And you can speculate about why that is, but they do. So 70% of our farms are above the MRTN. And the other thing that I would note here is that there may be, as you're going to see, we do find an increasing yield trend here, but it's mainly, the yields aren't going up. What we're doing is cutting off some of these lower yields for whatever reason as we go up to the higher nitrogen rates. All right, that's what they applied. And now I'm going to show you this slide. And we divided those farms up into MRTN, which is a 20-pound range around the MRTN, and that'll vary by year. And that's going to be 0. All right, that'll be 0. That's our baseline. These farms applied below MRTN. They had 16 bushel less yield and 16 bushel less returns per acre. So if you're looking at those farms that apply below MRTN, over here, they did have lower returns than our MRTN farms. All right, these ranges, all right, so you get to the edge of the MRTN range. One is a 20-pound actual N range, So it would go from MRTN plus 20 pounds. This would be 40 pounds. 3 would be 40 to 60, and 4 would be 80 and over. All right, first off, yields here did not go, it were 1 bushel less. These were, 2 MRTN were 6 bushels more on average. But again, this is what we're averaging. All right, just to give you a feel. These were 7 bushels, and we actually did see a yield response, 18 bushels. Again, you see the graph over there. Here's the return response, minus 20, minus 21, minus 31, minus 31. What's happening here is you're putting in higher nitrogen rates in there, and that's causing that to go down. So what we find here is that MRTN, our results from PCM would confirm that the MRTN is the profitable area in East Central Illinois. So whatever the agronomists are doing, and you guys got to, they don't do economics all that well, but they did get that one right. So that's a joke, by the way. They're usually pretty good. So that MRTN from our case does very well. So here's our summary. For our PCM fields, 70% receive a nitrogen application greater than the MRTN profitable range. Number 1. 2, MRTN is the most profitable nitrogen application rate. On average, mostly pre-plant and side dress had the highest operator and land return, and also had the lowest nitrogen cost. So finally, we're doing some, why do farmers apply above the MRTN? And frankly, I don't believe the MRTN is the end result of that. They simply, when they don't, I would say that a lot of our farmers don't believe that is the profit maximizing level. And I've heard a lot of people in this area say it's just way too simple, right? You're giving us a rate and you're giving us a budget, and you don't care when we apply it, and you don't care about other things, and that's just way too simple. The other thing is that the transition here was from, in our part of the world, 1.2 times your expected yield to this, which was generally much lower. All right, and as our yields go up, we're getting higher MRTNs, but it was much lower. Those rates are much lower than 1.2 times the expected yield. And again, the expected yield in this part of the world would be, they're telling me I got to get done. I'll be done here. Well, the expected, by the way, in Illinois, we can talk forever. They got to do things like that. They got to pull us off. Here's what we did find, though, that those farmers that did apply a MRTN use NRCS conservation programs do not have a fewer, rely less on custom applicators. They typically do it more of it themselves, and you use cover crops. You do see overall probably a more environmentally focused farmer. I would also note that the use of technologies doesn't vary a lot between MRTN versus non-MRTN. So I'm going to stop here, and I appreciate your time, and I appreciate your allowing a Illinois person to come up here and talk. I think we're beating you, Minnesota, in basketball. I'm not sure of that. All right, am I right there? Illinois is good this year, maybe, till they go down. Any questions? All right, I didn't, Fabian, what's the percent of farmers that, in Minnesota farmers that apply above the MRTN? Do you have that number or know that? Yeah. So the question was, what percent of farmers apply above the MRTN in Minnesota? I asked Fabian that, and he thought it would be roughly equal to 70%, or roughly equal to that, which was at Illinois. So we'll go with that. What type of applications were the above MRTN? Let me read this. What types of applications were the MRTN ranges? Oh, okay. The above MRTN ranges, again, so they varied by year. But let's say it's 180 pounds for 2021. The MRTN range was, if it's 180 pounds, it would be 2 plus 20, so 200 down to 160. And then the one above it would be 200 to 220. The second above it would be 220 to 240. The third above it would be 240 to 260, and then 260 and above. We have a lot of, if you look at our data, there are some farmers that are making very high nitrogen applications. The other thing we notice is that farmers do that from year to year to year. They don't, our farmers in this system don't vary their application rates much. We did not find, so fall applied tend to apply more nitrogen than spring, and or those that rely more on spring, but that's, there are quite a few MRT fall applications that happen at MRTN as well. How can, all right, how can MRTN be most profitable when it broke even? By the way, so that's a good question. That zero means that we were centering that the MRTN at zero, and then we were subtracting. So was the baseline was zero. That does not mean that they were unprofitable. There would have been an operator and land return there for that year, but we centered everything so that we could make that graph hopefully pretty. That's a good, that's a good question. All right, I am done.
Excellent.
And I appreciate your time.